I call to order this July 17th, 2025 regular meeting of the Zoning Code Update Citizen Advisory Committee of the Town of Clarkdale. Could we have the roll call, please?
Backus, here. Member Root on Power. Root on Power. Here. Member Snyder. Here. And Chair Spence. That, did I say, that's right, Vice Cat. Here. That's the last.
And I'm present. I'm here. Yeah, but I didn't say anything. Okay, item 3, public comment. The Zoning Code Update Citizen Advisory Committee invites the public to provide comments at this time. Members of the Zoning Code Update Citizen Advisory Committee may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. Persons interested in making comments on a specific agenda item are asked to complete a brief form and submit it to the clerk during the meeting. Each speaker is asked to limit their comments to 5 minutes. Do we have anybody that would like to speak this time? Anybody on Zoom? Okay, then we'll go on to number 4. Minutes of the last meeting. Does anybody on the committee have any questions or comments on the minutes from the last meeting? Okay, seeing none, then I'll take a motion for approval of the minutes of the last meeting.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the meeting held on May 15th, 2025.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, seeing that, we'll go on to our new business, which is, what's that? Oh, I'm sorry. Let's vote on that. Yeah, everybody that agrees, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, then it's passed, approved. Now we'll go on to item 5, which is discussion of the chapters 4, 5, and 7 of the zoning. So Ruth, take it away.
When I did that, so it's the final version, the whole chapter shows now like we got and then the one. So if this it's all red. So one of the things that we've been discussing is the accessory structures and setback. There seems to be about setbacks, however, we understand how they work. But, rather than have the never time, if I build a house, over the accessory structure, it's not very.
Okay.
Actually, I'll just
Much better. Okay, so if you look at a lot of the zoning codes for surrounding communities, the accessory structure section, the standards are part of the development standards for each one of the zoning districts. So for instance, if you have a R1 district, it is included right in there with the setbacks and all of the maximum building height requirements, lot coverage. It's right in with that. So staff suggestion is that we delete this here and put it into the development standards for each zoning district. Make sense? Done. All right, so if we go on to this, I went through and I did a lot of wordsmithing, so some of this is, going to be things you want to discuss, and some of it is just, here are the changes that staff has made. So on page 9, number 3, when changing the use of an occupancy, I just changed that prior to initiation of use. Both zoning compliance check and building safety clearance are required because it repeats itself. And then strike the prior to commencement of the use.
Back to the accessory
Uh-huh.
buildings. It shows in there a 3-foot distance from the property line. And then for ADUs and things like that is a 5-foot difference. Is there any reason why they should all not be 5 foot?
So the 5-foot is in there because the legislature passed a law last year and they said thou shalt have these setbacks for ADUs.
Right.
So we can change it to 5 foot to be more consistent. I think we can look at that when we get to the zoning districts.
Okay. All right.
All right, let's see. So if we go down to number 10, I'm still on page 9, where it says installation of commercial kitchen facilities requires acquisition of necessary permits per county and state. So I just crossed that out and just put in shall conform to county and state health department requirements.
What's a commercial kitchen? Is it definition?
Yeah, that's like a restaurant or a school. Those are all commercial kitchens. Yeah. All right. Next page. So now on page number 10 under C. So now we're talking about RVs and RV parks and campgrounds. So we wanted to clarify in here that so we talk about the use of recreational vehicles as temporary housing when something is under construction. And I wanted to add a little bit of clarifying language because you can only do it for a period of 18 months. So what this says is, as long as a valid building permit for construction remains in force. I want to make sure that people understand that that's 18 months, that you can't live there for 3 years while you are slowly building your house. So we would add there, but no longer than 18 months. In the comma, occupancy shall not extend beyond the date of issuance of a certificate of occupancy. So that when somebody's house is done, they move into it and nobody else is living in the RV on their property. Good with that one?
Yeah.
All right. I really didn't have much on the next page. This continues with the RV park and campground language. This is basically development standards, on-site circulation, size of each RV stall. The next page goes into landscaping. So that's the section for campgrounds and RV park. So flagpoles we just adopted not too long ago. Britannia did this section, and so we didn't really have any changes to that just because it's been so recent. So then on page 14, we should be at 4-060 fence and wall height. We didn't really have too many changes in that either. It's hard to change some of the language in some of these things because if we change this wall height, then I have half the town that are non-conforming walls. And then we have to keep track of it all. So if this is one of those, if it's not broken, don't fix it. The same with the hazardous, special and radioactive materials. That one pretty much covers what we needed to cover. The home occupation, the only one was a typo. Let's see, on page 17, number 9, there's a, it should be off-street parking and not off-site parking. And then 4-090 miscellaneous projection of an architectural member, take the D out, and then setback should be 2 words. And then, so in section 4-100 noise, in A, it references a list for land uses and noise allowed. I think they're still working on that list. So when we get that, we'll update you on that. And then C talks about hours of construction no construction between 9 p.m. and sunrise. The legislature of this session also adopted rules about when construction can and can't stop, and it may not coincide with sunrise because you can start pouring concrete at 4 a.m. So this we will be updating to be in conformance with that new law. All right, so we should be on page 18. Off-street parking and loading. So I rewrote this paragraph, the introduction there, because it's kind of a mess, A. So now it will say off-street parking and loading shall be provided at the time of construction of new building or structure or at a change of use, when a change of use in occupancy requires additional parking. Excuse me, change of use in an existing structure requires additional parking. Are we good with that? All right. So the rest of this on this is a table for parking. We really expanded this quite a bit because we did not have parking standards for gas stations and other common uses. So this was one of the reasons that we did this, is to make sure that we had a much greater breadth of requirements for common uses that that we see, so that we're not scrambling to figure out what parking needs to be done. All right, so that should take us up to page 23. Does anybody have any questions on that?
I have a question or comment.
Mhm.
Design standards, off-street parking, item B, you've got 10-foot wide aisle or 20-foot wide aisle. And that seems to be in conflict with, where'd my notes go? Elsewhere, in fact, on the chart on the following page, it starts saying lane width. 24, 18, 12, 12. Based
Oh,
on,
gotcha.
right. So I see that as, I believe that's a conflict.
Yep. So we'll correct that to match the table. We'll go with the wider.
When it comes to ADA parking, is that you follow Yavapai County? Because I don't see that we're listing it in here.
We follow the federal guidelines, which is 10%.
ADA, right.
Yeah. And that has to be built to the federal standards.
Yeah. So do we want to identify that on here?
We
or
we can add that in. That's not a bad suggestion.
All right. Just thinking like an architect, where
No,
I find
this
information.
is why you're here. Or from an architect's perspective, what are we missing?
Right.
let's see. All right.
In fact, while we're at that, and this little somewhere, but swimming pool barriers,
I'm sorry?
swimming pool barriers,
Oh, swimming pool barriers, uh-huh.
because I didn't find that through here. But that would go back to, that one goes back to the county?
Nope, that
Well, I
goes
know, like,
state law and building code.
okay. Right. A lot of work I do down in the Phoenix area, it just follows Maricopa County guidelines. But
Yeah, no, we stick to building code, IBC, and
is it identified in here?
we can, but there's there's state
60?
law that talks about. Yeah, we can add it.
I'm not trying to make it longer, but
No, 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 no. In fact, I think we talk about it back in swimming pools. Back at the end at
Pool.
S,
yeah, I went back there.
swimming pools.
Where's my notes go?
I just want to note on that, that we did receive some feedback from council regarding swimming pool regulations. So that is something that we're going to be looking at a little bit more. Just because neighboring jurisdictions do have setbacks that are very drastically from ours as well. So that's something that we are still talking with our building official on.
Okay.
The state statute, I think, says 5 feet from property lines, and there's concern that that's not far enough.
Oh, yeah, I saw that in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's something that section we're still working on.
Okay.
All right, let's see, where did we leave off? Off-street parking. So also on design standards for off-street parking, 2D also seems to conflict. It has different dimensions than the table. And there's another section, page 25, it's also included. So we're deleting this section and we're going to go with because this is for a smaller, this is much smaller than the other one, and we need to make sure that these apply. You can get a semi truck parked. And this one is only 35 feet, not quite long enough and not quite wide enough. I'm sorry? Let's see, where did I have it? 20?
On page 25. Loading space size?
Yes, loading space size, single loading space, 12 feet wide, 30 feet long, 14 feet minimum. So I think we'll just up that length, needs to be higher. But I don't want it in 2 places.
Right.
Because this is what happens. All right, so that's all for this one.
Sorry, I have one more point here about the ADA parking. On section 4-110 off-street parking and loading, we do call out the ADA requirements. If you want to take a look at that and see if it needs to be a little bit more.
Which page was that?
It's on the actual page is 18, but it's 12 of chapter 4. So it's in the.
Oh, right in the beginning, handicap parking design requirement standards shall follow the national ADA requirements for number of parking spaces and design specifications.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought we had it in there. All right, so I think we're good on page 23. Page 24, we're going to update the little table there. Page 25, we're going to update the length so that we're consistent with what a semi actually needs. Section 4-120, parking lots and driveways, just the last line, fixtures shall be shielded, rather than utilization of shielding the fixtures. Let's see.
Section 4 point or -130, get an example of that.
Sure. So a lot of times we don't have a town engineer, we don't have one on staff. So when we get plans in for commercial projects or subdivisions or things like that, we don't have anybody on staff that can review them. And when you go out and contract with an engineer for review, it's about, I think they're up to $280 an hour now. So we charge the applicant for that review. Yeah, I'm in the wrong business. No, I should have gone to engineering school. Okay. So the next section, rear yards and business and commercial loading zones. I'd really like to just combine this with the off-street parking section. Makes complete sense. All right. And then, let's see, recreational and medical marijuana. This is all set by the state. So we cannot torment ourselves and read it.
You get a whole lot of pages on that.
What's that?
There's a lot of pages on that.
I know it. Well, you know, and it's funny, this is the way zoning works. I'll be honest with you, is there's some new use that comes in and everybody writes these big, long, detailed ordinances to regulate them. And then within 3 to 5 years, everybody's like, meh, and you end up deleting it all. So the only addition we had in this was shall not be located within 500 feet of a nonprofit organization. And then, let's see, I did want to note on page 35, individuals' primary residence for personal use is just clarifying that this would be for an individual residing at the residence, which I know sounds redundant, but we have to be clear sometimes. Super clear. Sidewalk cafe, that is at the bottom of page 36. So we did a little bit more work on that. We've taken some stuff out of here, but we've taken a little bit more text here. And just like I said, trying to wordsmith it for clarity. So sidewalk, B2 would be sidewalk cafe means a dining area within a portion of the public sidewalk. Right of way could include a street, and I really don't want people sitting in the streets. And then just use kept and maintained and held out to the public as a place for sidewalk dining. So just clarifying that, striking right of way and adding sidewalks in, just to be clear. And then if we go to the next page, page 37, under number 2 is permit process. So the legislature this year has, Becky laughs. The legislature this year, a couple of years ago, adopted a statute that said the municipalities should adopt a staff review process for certain things, plats, final development plans, things that are a binary option. Either yes, it does comply with code, or no, it doesn't. So municipalities and counties had the option to do that. Now the legislature has gone back and said, thou shalt adopt this. So one little word has wreaked all kinds of havoc on our processes. So for the, where did it go? So now we are authorized, administrative personnel is now authorized to review and approve site plans, development plans, land division, lot line adjustment, lot ties, preliminary plats, final plats, and plat amendments without a public hearing. And also review and approve design review plans based on objective standards without a public hearing. So that applies to this permit process. We're going to have to rewrite this section and take the references out to the Planning Commission and to the Historic Preservation Commission. Ready for the next page?
Yeah.
All right, page 38. Section G, for safety reasons, no extension cords or freestanding temporary lighting will be permitted. You can't do that anyhow. It's a trip hazard, so we don't need to, the building code doesn't allow it, so it's out. And then, Section H, other restrictions, number 3, liquor service. It says food service shall be available at all times commensurate with alcohol service. There's no state law or alcohol license requirement for food to be served. So I think we need to take that one out.
That would be food service without alcohol?
No, it would be alcohol with no food service.
Oh, I can just get a drink?
Yeah. All right,
Hey, back to number 2,
number 2.
ambient noise,
Oh, amplified music, yes.
but is there a definition of what ambient is?
So, yeah, that will be in that table that, for the noise section. All right. The next page, we're page 39, number 6, sidewalk cafe location restrictions. Just again, wordsmithing, I'm taking also out and just saying no item shall be placed. And then the last sentence is out. Clearances should take into consideration nearest movable object on the sidewalk. And then number 8, any outdoor heating devices need fire district and building official review require. Substituting require for need. Page 40 and 41. I don't want to blow through this too quickly. That's section 4-190. So this is a completely new standards for golf courses. Britannia spent a lot of time working on this one. It takes into consideration water use, residential uses, reclaimed water, all of those kinds of things. So she did a really nice job. I think it's going to be much better than what we had before. And because we're not in an active management area, the town is limited on how much we can restrict golf courses. So we're right up on the line for this one. Toes on line. Let's see.
On that page 41, for grass species.
Uh-huh.
Does everybody know what those are? Or, you have a list of the plants,
Yes.
but it's not spelled out here.
So we have an approved plant list and that has all of those in, that has all of that in there. So that would be in the approved plant list. Okay, so I think the next one at page 43 was just spacing. Section 4-120 was the swimming pools on page 44. So in a residential district shall be an accessory to a residential use or shall be owned and operated by a public agency or shall be accessory to a non-residential use which is permitted in such a district. Number 4 shall not be located in the required front yard or side yard. Side yard required for vehicle access, required landscaped areas and closer than 3 feet from the water's edge to any lot line. So this is what we're trying to check up on, is this 3 foot versus the 5 foot and see what the state has been up to. All right. 220 is temporary use. Permits and structures. Number 3, just deleting with direction to provide comments or complaints to the community development director. We already do that. Those letters all are required to put that language in there, so. Let's see, page 46. Number 3, special events, where it says, subject to the requirements of town code, I'm just going to add Article 8-4, special events. So you don't have to guess where in town code it is. And then page 47, B, vehicular circulation, and then B again, that should be little b. As determined, it talks about average daily trips as determined by a TIA, traffic impact analysis. Just adding that language in there. Page 49. Wireless communication towers, we've got some bullet points in here. We're just going to change those to numbers. And that takes us to the end of chapter 4. Is there anything else anybody wanted to talk about in this section?
Back to the section 4.200. The dumpsters, that's page 44. I think I asked you about that.
Oh, yeah.
Does that apply to the dumpsters that we all use to recycle?
We haven't had a chance to talk to Virginia about that. They're supposed to be screened from public view.
Dumpsters? It's in a different part, though. It's not storage or material.
Right.
It's in-
No, it's in here. It says enclosed with solid wall or fence and gates that screen it from public view.
That's what we promoted when we went and did the huge swish for all of the residential and went through all the exceptions. People that wanted dumpsters and qualified for the exception, we enforced that they had to be screened. I know we see some in town that aren't, but that's what we've enforced so far.
Yeah. So our code enforcement is on a complaint driven basis. We don't have the budget for a full-time code enforcement person. So when we get complaints, we go out and enforce. But we can certainly talk to the school about cleaning it up.
I was just gonna ask, because the first, A says exposed non-residential storage areas, would you like it stipulated again that this is for commercial, that this is for everybody? Because I do see that there's a little bit of a, it's not super, super clear about who it's pertaining to.
Yep, we can clarify. All right, so that wraps up. Anybody else have anything for chapter 4? All right. Chapter 5. Conditional use permit. So we don't see a ton of conditional use permits, but when we do have a specific process for them. So what we did again here was to walk through all of the text for the conditional use permit and what's required by the applicant, the meeting process, and so forth. So this is one of the things that we cannot do administratively. Rezoning and conditional use permits will still require public hearings. So you'll see that language in here. We struck the language at the beginning, the first paragraph, purposes, intent. It's not necessary. Just go straight into the purpose of the conditional uses to allow uses which may only be suitable in specific locations or because of operational or physical characteristics that require special consideration, or only if such uses are designed or developed to assure maximum compatibility with adjoining uses. So this is for those things that don't quite fit into one zoning district or another. We try to find the closest fit and get them in there. This one you guys have not seen yet. So The next paragraph talks about conditions incorporated into the conditional use permit. So that's really kind of why we use these from time to time. We used the Rain Spirit RV was a conditional use permit. And it was done that way so that the town had a little bit more control over what went in there and how it was done. Just because there are certain uses like a campground that if it's not well maintained and well taken care of, they can really become a nightmare. So when we're discussing this, think of Rain Spirit because that really is a good example of a conditional use. So we struck out 5-020 authority. We already know we have the authority to do this. So we don't need to repeat that. This is that section is in chapter 1. We talked about that one first. There's a lot of redundant language about authority and then also about appeals. And so we put it all in chapter 1 so we don't have to keep repeating this over and over and over again. So this is the procedure here is the applicant will come in with we have a form for this, of course. They're required to submit like a narrative of the project, elevations, a site plan that shows where on the site everything's going to be. Elevations are the nice pictures of what it's going to look like once it's built. So we get all of those. And then we have a public hearing before the planning commission so that everybody in the neighborhood is aware of what's going on and has a chance to comment. So we did expand. So this one says 200 feet. We're extending that to 300 feet just to be consistent with the notice for all the other public hearings. It doesn't make sense to have this one at 2 and everybody else 3. And it just makes it easier for us. If we make a mistake with that, then we have to start all over again. So. All right. So a lot of this is just the technical process of notifying if it's abuts a neighboring jurisdiction, we have to notify them. The planning commission will hold a public hearing, just like all the other public hearings they have, take public comment. They will make a recommendation to town council. And then council will hold, will consider it on a regular agenda as a regular business item. However, they can hold another public hearing if they so desire, or what generally happens is that they'll just take public comment when the item comes up. So there's ample notice for these kinds of things. This also contains protest language. So the protest, how the protest works is if 20% of the lots within 150 feet, excuse me, which is statutory, of the proposed conditional use permit, submit written objections, then not only is there a second public hearing, but you're also required to have a supermajority to approve. So that means is it 4 of the 5 would have to approve. So that helps a lot. We took out denial by the commission because it doesn't really matter. They can approve with conditions, deny, and send it to town council. That's the recommendation they send. If they feel that if the public is upset about it and they feel that this is not a good use, then the commission has the ability to say town council, all right, here you go. We don't think this is a good use. Our recommendation is to deny it. All right, so now the bottom of page 56, required findings. So for a conditional use permit and some of the other approvals, we look at what we call findings of fact. And in here, that's what you're seeing are the findings of fact that we're saying that, yes, we've looked at all of these things. Yes, we find it meets these standards and the standards that we've imposed. Any additional standards that we have imposed. So, The next section talks about the standard conditions, required conditions. So all of them have to meet all of this. All of these, consistency with the general plan, sanitary waste improvements. So they're really kind of like a special rezoning, you know, for this one lot, for this one use. That's what the conditional use permits are for. So that's why we go through all of this. Consistency with the general plan is something that we require for rezonings. Same with the rest of these. A lot of these are kind of improvements that we wouldn't ordinarily look at, but for a special use or a conditional use, we want to make sure we take a look at all of these. So let's see, terms of a conditional use permit. We just updated this not too long ago. So we wanted to clarify about conditional use permits. Once they're issued, they're tied to the land. So if I have a campground and I sell it, the next buyer doesn't have to come in and get a new conditional use permit. It's already been approved. It's tied to the land. So it runs with the land rather than the owner. Renewal of a conditional use permit. So if somebody says, sure, I'll put up a 6-foot brick wall to screen this from my neighbors, and they never do it, then we can revoke the conditional use permit and they lose their ability to have their campground. So that's why it's important. And that's why we do go out when we do these conditional use permits and make sure that they're living up to what's required of them. And typically, if they're not, we hear about it. The next section talks about abandonment of a conditional use permit or modification or an expansion of a conditional use permit. So if we see change, if somebody wants to change, these are the things, if you're going to do any of these things, increase dwelling units, character of the development, any of this, we're going back and we're going to update that permit. We'll go back through the process. So this does two things. It keeps people from, creeping out of what that was approved, right? In theory. And it really encourages them to think their project through. So when they come to us, they have a complete plan rather than I'll do this later. That's the hope, at least. All right, any questions on that section? All right. The next section is chapter 7, which is signs. So we used to regulate signage quite a bit. And 10 years ago, there was a lawsuit between a guy by the name of Reed. It was his last name. He was a minister and he had a little church, didn't have a permanent location. And he was in the city of Gilbert down in the valley. And so he had little signs like we call them bandit signs, we buy ugly houses, or, we'll mow your landscaping services, all of those. He had little bandit signs like that around where he would say, we're going to have church services at 10:30 at, the neighborhood school, and we're going to be meeting in the library. And then the next week it would be at somebody's restaurant or somebody's house. So Gilbert went after him for putting these signs up and not taking them down quickly enough. It ended up at the Supreme Court. And I've, in my career, discovered that you never bet against God. Gilbert lost spectacularly.
Oh.
So no longer can we regulate signs based on content. We can't say what you can say on there. We can't say what color it is, what font you use. All we can regulate is what's known as manner and placement. What is it made of and where is it on the lot? So you're going to see a lot of strikeouts in here, just trying to get us into conformance with that decision. So we cleaned up the purpose and intent section just to make it a little bit clearer about what's going on in this section. What the purpose is not to, everybody thinks we're trying to make everybody miserable. But with signage, we look at a lot of factors. Is it visible? And not only can you see it from the street, because we don't want to have happen is on 89A, somebody driving super slow, trying to find a location and then get rear-ended. So is it visible from the street? Is it visible at those speeds? Right? Those are the things that we can look at now. How tall is it? How wide is it? What area does it have? So we tie signage allotments to frontage. The lot frontage that the sign will be on. And you guys all know this because we talked about this Tuesday night. So in general provisions, we changed a little bit of language dealing with people who apply for one sign versus somebody who's coming in and applying for a comprehensive or master sign project or a process. Because when we have a development come in, for instance, Mountain Gate, we want to look at all of those signs at once. So we look at the directional signs, we look at monument signs, we look at all of that, the street signage, all of that, to make sure that they've got it all at once. So we're not going back and reviewing it time and time and time again. And that's pretty much what this section talks about. Because of State Route 89A, we have to clear signage on there with ADOT. So we talk about that a bit. And then on page 68, we've got a lot of new text about sign standards, sign measurement. Just trying, like I said, trying to clean up what was there before so that it's clearer, and trying to use some illustrations to try to explain what it is we're talking about. You'll see that on page 70. We have how we measure height, especially with if there's grade. And we do run into grade issues here. Sign illumination, exempt signs. So there are certain signs that we exempt from this ordinance. Official notices, directional signs that are required by the federal, state, or municipal agencies. So the police department, that kind of thing. Like I said, ADOT would regulate signage or tell us what we have to put out on, well, they would put it out on 89A. So that's the kind of thing we'll see there. Flags are really hard to regulate. So those are exempt. Religious symbols, temporary non-commercial signs expressing personal, political, or ideological messages are allowed subject to the same time, place, and manner restrictions as other temporary signs. So again, not regulating on content, just manner and placement. And then prohibited signs, we went through and took some of them, took a couple of them out. Electronic signs, those are so commonplace now that there's no reason for us not to allow them. Then we talk about, we did add language on page 73. At the top, you'll see in purple, any sign which is structurally unsafe or constitutes a hazard to safety or health is not kept in good repair. So this is just so we have some language, we have some teeth that we can require somebody to fix their sign if it's falling down. Then we talk about non-conforming signs. That's just talking about signs that when we when the zoning code was adopted or any changes were made to it, if they were in conformance before it was adopted, they're considered non-conforming and they can stay the way they are. They can't expand, but they can stay the way they are. And then commercial sign use in residential zoning districts. This really applies mostly to like daycares and bed and breakfast or something like that. Home occupations are the same. Permanent signs. We did a lot of tweaking of language and just wordsmithing in this part. For instance, page 76 of 98, number 6, we struck out base must be in proportion to the sign size area, which is a little wishy-washy. The next page, page 77, on-site commercial information. It says on-site information signage shall not contain advertising script or symbols. So that would be like a drive-through, and McDonald's can't put their logo on their sign. So we struck that. Portable signs, we talk about using those. Let's see. The next big deletion is on page 80. Talks about, we just deleted the real estate signs because those are obviously content regulated. And then we did use correct some language in special events. It should be an unlimited number rather than an unlimited amount of directional signs are permitted. And then comprehensive rather than master sign package. Then we get into some of these, the master sign package and the subdivision advertising. Again, that's where we see the big, master sign plan so that they can get everything approved all at once. And as they go through phases, they put in new directional signage and that sort of thing. So the next big section is page 85, and that is temporary signs. Let me back up. Right above it, we've added murals in. Just because there were historically murals, I wouldn't call them murals, but there were exterior wall signs downtown.
I just want to, for the record, we have design review board in there that we need to
Yes.
delete. So.
Nope, that needs to go out. All right, temporary signs. So this has been pretty much rewritten. It's much clearer. And then we get to the maximum total square footage of sign area table. That's been renumbered. Visibility sight lines, talks about not getting signs too close to intersections so people can see through the intersection. And then we have some new, a new illustration of what that sight triangle looks like. That's page 88. And then an updated table for the permitted signs by type and zone district. So we have added no's in for a lot of those, an N. Any questions?
Kind of a little question here.
Huh?
A little nitpicky, but
Sure.
so obviously the N's are no, the Y's are yes.
Right.
You've got P's and others. Do we actually need to spell it out
Yep.
of what all these mean?
Yes. Thanks for catching that. Permitted. And then that's the end of that. The
Somewhere, there's like section, I wrote it before. No twirling. That's the,
the states says otherwise. The legislature says we have to allow that. Yeah, I know it's coming out. Yeah, that will come out as well. Sign spinning and all of that. They did that a couple of years ago. They keep helping me. And we obviously missed it because we can't keep up. So we get back to enforcement, and again, that's where that other language comes in handy, so that if there's, a sign that's falling apart, we have the ability to enforce the code and compel the owner to fix it. And then we go back to the permitted sign table. So for all of the permitted signs, this is a much better way to talk about the standards for developing those signs.
Signs code, your department approves them first before they go to design review.
We review them and they go to design review, but after December 31st, they will be all reviewed by staff. There will not be any more design review. The end. It'll all be staff level. So we have several pages of that. And then we come to my favorite topic, the political sign-free zone map. Every time we have an election, we spend all kinds of time running around measuring and checking and measuring and checking political signs. So we have this, for those of you who don't know the minutia, because a couple of years ago, the legislature decided that we could have political sign-free zones so that they weren't littering the streets, in tourism areas or places like that, just downtowns like ours. So we have to include this map so that we are clear about where you can put them and where you cannot. So this is the political sign-free zone map. And we talk about those earlier on here in the political sign section. But this is really I'm sorry?
Who polices that?
Bob, poor Bob. I can't tell you how many phone calls a day we get about signs, political signs. It's nuts. So, any questions about signage? Signs?
No.
Okay, that's it. So next week we have a joint meeting with I'm sorry? The housing group. Am I in the wrong? No, this is the house. No, I'm sorry. I've been reading code all day and my brain is fried. Next Thursday, we have a joint meeting with the stakeholder group for the housing study. And so they've been kind of doing housing and affordable housing stuff on one side, and we have been working on code on another side. So now we're going to bring everybody together so you can see what they're doing and then how this ties in, and they can see what the code changes are and how that ties in. Our consultant, Martina Kuhl, will be there. She will talk about the housing needs assessment and also some recommended incentives for developing low mod and workforce housing in Clarkdale. So we thought it would be a good time for everybody to sit down and walk through some of that information together, just so everybody's getting the same message and the same information.
It's next Thursday at 4:30.
And then after that, I'm sorry?
Will we receive a packet on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Once we've walked through all of that, then we are going to start working on the individual zoning districts. So that will take at least 2 meetings so that we can walk through each single zoning district and talk about development standards and setbacks and all of those kinds of details. Some of them will be fairly straightforward and some of them will need some work, especially when we look at things like commercial and industrial. There's some work to be done there, and with the single family residential as well. So does anybody have any questions?
Just, at the next 3 meetings, August 21st, September 18th. For this, yeah. for this meeting.
They should be.
The next one would be the 3rd of August and then of the month of, and then September. But we do have this special meeting next week with these two groups.
That's it first. Item 5. So item 6, future agenda items. Does anybody have those that they'd like to put on a future agenda? Okay,
No.
seeing none, and 7, adjournment. So I'll take a motion to adjourn. The motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
So all approve, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we're adjourned.
Great.